Chapter 10.
Awaking for what felt like the first time, Hilliard's senses felt overwhelming. A buzz, short in length, but powerful enough to interrupt breathing, hit him several times as he tried to stand. Hitting his eyes and nostrils, filling with air, their normal function kept being cut off, until he measured the buzzing or vibration with his wristwatch. They occurred roughly every few minutes, and were always roughly the same length in occurrence. Taking the timing into account, Hilliard could soon stand and breathe with no problem. This was when he took in his surroundings. In front of him was a mountain, and behind him a forest. Normal, or so it seemed. Looking up, his eyes met disbelief, and his mouth fell to the monstrosity of colour and variation thereof haunting the sky. The colours, lacking any vibrancy, were all dark and murky, and as flowing lava they collided with such force it reminded him of a raging storm in the ocean. There was a moment, looking at the sky, where when a thought crossed his mind, he saw a new colour join the flow of rage and bring forth new, saturated colours. The black dark space behind the colours seemed insignificant to the rage of the current sky, but Hilliard saw it in the corner of his eye, very faintly, the earth. "Where on earth am I?" he said out loud. "Not on earth, unfortunately," replied a sarcastic and high-pitched voice. "Who is there? Show yourself." Hilliard changed his stance and facial expression to that of someone on defense. "Hello, Hilliard. My name is Kofferel," said a small, energetic voice. "Where are you?" Hilliard's voice echoed towards the side of the mountain in front of him. "Behind you," said Kofferel. Turning around, Hilliard saw nothing. "Look down," said Kofferel. Hilliard looked down, and to more disbelief he saw an older-looking woman who stood at least 2.5 foot tall. She was hunched over a little, supporting herself with a very small stick, as large as Hilliard's foot. Her face, clearly hit by age, she, to Hilliard at least, did not look past 50, but the stick suggested she was much older than his assumption. Her eyes were the first thing he noticed. Rounded and much larger than normal human faces would allow, they pierced you immediately with their held emotion. Her nose followed, as it was rather small, and then her mouth, following the nose proportions, was almost a dot in comparison. With her large and pointy ears, she wagged them before saying, "What are you staring at? Didn't your mother tell you staring is rude?" Hilliard took a small step back and looked at her clothing. It was a gown, almost reflecting the sky, but the colours were different. They were vibrant, soft, calm, and allowed the black space behind them to give them more boldness in their play. Among the reflection of the sky, rabbit insignias were plastered in places like the collar, shoulders, and sternum, which led Hilliard to ignore Kofferel's questions and reply with his own. "Am I on the moon?" he asked bluntly. Kofferel, shook by his ignorance, took a step back of her own, and then looked at him with a crooked and small smile. "A smart but ignorant fellow, eh? Well, the answer is yes and no. You're in a moon dimension rather than the actual moon. A dimension, you say? Hilliard replied. He began trying to read Kofferel. Her eyes, her nose, her lips, even body language, to persuade himself she was lying, and this was just some sort of hallucination. Nothing. Blank. He could not tell if she was lying, and for the first time in his life he felt helpless. Helpless to a small, old woman. Something inside Hilliard sparked. It ignited a thump to the heart he had not yet known, and had told him, as it thumped his blood to each limb, that he did not know himself as well as he once thought. A man without feelings was indeed feeling something. Explainable it was not, but the ignition of this moment drove his thoughts and next words to align with this woman and her motives, no matter what they were. "I'm talking to you, hello!" Whack! Kofferel got impatient and whacked Hilliard on the shin with her walking stick, to which he lacked any response worth giving. Rubbing his shin, he said, "I apologize. I was lost in thought. What was you saying?" "Shut up and follow me," Kofferel said, walking away with a waved attitude to her walking stick. Hilliard did not fear where he was being taken, nor did he question their destination, but he had to chase this feeling, whether it was real or not. Its existence within him was a welcome abnormality. Hilliard is an intelligent man, but unwillingly he was chasing a new idea of himself. Emotions and feelings bewildering to a man that in general felt nothing. The deeper self of the mind and body, locked away for the many years of his life, was beginning to unfold through the only flint of truth or a lie. Hilliard followed this old woman at a slower walking pace than he would normally walk. Consideration for others wasn't actually a strong point for him. Initially, his strides would always eventually catch the old woman, but the vibrations in the air always felt like a reminder from this place that he should hold fast and have patience. The walk was long and vast, expanding across the forest, where Hilliard's careless eyes lit up to the amazing creatures and critters that littered the sky and floor of the trees. The trees shimmering with movement. He would hold a hesitant hand to them as they walked past. More sensations of the body hit Hilliard in small waves. To him, they were untranslatable, but to any bystander, he looked like a young boy with big eyes, discovering the world around him. Hilliard still remained silent throughout the journey, and felt a tiredness in his legs after 3 hours of continuous walking. Kofferel showed no signs of slowing down. In fact, it looked like she had sped up. "Keep up, boy," she said, waving her stick. For some reason unknown to him, her words made his face stretched. For some reason unknown to him, her words made his face stretch into a smile. Touching his face, he confirmed in confusion, but it was indeed a smile. The journey had come to an end after the 4th hour of walking. They walked through the front gates of large kingdom walls, where Kofferel hit the guards for being too slow with the opening of the doors. Hilliard wasn't quite at a laugh yet, but the confusing smile would return. As they walked through this shimmering kingdom, Everyone living inside the walls looked at Hilliard with a warmth he had never received before. It threw him off as perhaps sarcasm or hidden maliciousness, but Kofferel corrected him without him saying a word. They are and will always be happy to see you. It is not deceit or hidden malice. Truth is the only thing you will find here. Her words were straight, with no feeling behind them, which left interpreting them clear, leading to a truth Hilliard had without resistance accepted. The entire world inside the giant walls shimmered like a mirage in a desert. Everything excepting of the vibrations still haunting him every so often, and the sky above clashing like waves of the sea. The colours reflecting into his eyes had changed from violence and saturation to vibrancy and soft play-like movement, in slow efforts that crashed into a firework-like display. A sign of childlike wonder and curiosity, another chord of unexplainable emotion, hit Hilliard for a speck of a moment so clear he had forgotten who he was. "Boy, are you listening?" shouted Kofferel. "Sorry, what did you say?" asked Hilliard, as he brought his eyes away from the sky and back down to Kofferel. "We are seeing the king. Do not—" "King?" questioned Hilliard. "Don't cut me off, boy," said Kofferel, with a whack of her stick near his feet. "Apologies," replied Hilliard. "We are seeing the king. Do not, and I mean do not, harm him. Doesn't matter what he says or what he does. Do not harm him. Is that clear?" said Kofferel, in a very serious manner. "Very well," Hilliard replied, with no thought to question. He had no such intention anyway, regardless of what was said. But he would defend himself if need be. But doing so with a king would be a daunting task. There are clearly guards outnumbering him, not to mention he hadn't fought anyone since his younger days. More trouble than it's worth, so it would seem. The palace was a structure of magnificence. Long cone-like towers, Lego-like cut-out rooftops and guardways. It was a palace of fairy tales. They walked through a garden that grew flowers and plants Hilliard had never seen before. Hilliard had grown curiosity about this land and its people. This venture was nothing like he had ever experienced in his lifetime, and would probably never have the opportunity again. With its existence real or not, he left everything from his moments on to flow with the time that would allow it. The main doors of the palace opened, and a fresh aroma of what could be assumed as food hit Hilliard, almost as strong as Kofferel's whack of the stick. "Stop dallying, boy. This way, Kofferel said in a shrill voice. Kofferel pointed to a large set of stairs, taking up a majority of space in front of them. The floor was polished and pristine. The walls followed in the same fashion, and the stairs were so reflective it almost hurt the eyes. A white carpet separated Hilliard's feet from the wood, and with the vibrations it looked alive, as he took his first steps up the large staircase. "Follow me. No eyeballing the maids either," said Kofferel, with a scrunched face. Hilliard nodded in silence, just observing everything in sight as they traversed up the stairs. Disappointment hit him, as his empty self became more prevalent as they went up each set of stairs. The childlike wonder and amazement of this dimension had come to equilibrium, and his emotions had locked themselves away once more. Unknown to the floor or amount of steps they had taken, Kofferel pointed her stick to a hallway that held a strong darkness at the end of it. "The door at the end. I don't want to see that old fool today," Kofferel said. She spoke the words with a sadness in them. Her body language seemed withdrawn. As she took her stick with both hands, her eyes, glassy, pointed to the floor. Hilliard felt no compassion for her. Her sadness was not something he could feel. He looked away from the older woman standing still with sadness, and began to walk down the darkness of the hallway. The vibrations in the air felt less riveting in this area of the palace. Perhaps because of the position. It was higher up in the sky. That could be the conclusion. However, being that this palace was special, it wasn't a stretch to imagine that the king of this palace was indeed a human man. Kofferel's sadness warranted by the fact that he was by chance older than her in regards to time's end. It appeared as though he was correct. Guards taller and much stronger than Hilliard opened the doors to a room of normality, a room similar to one Hilliard had organized himself, as the bookshelves were a welcome sight. Sitting by the fire was a man dressed in a gown of rabbit insignias, and a reflective shine similar to the polish of the stairs. Accompanying him was a small rabbit sitting on his shoulder, its colour as black as soot. Its eyes shined a deep red. The man in front of Hilliard appeared strong, despite the reflection of his age. "Hello, Hilliard. It is a pleasure to meet you. I take it Kofferel insisted on not seeing me," the old man asked, with a saddening expression. "Hello, your Majesty. I am not sure how to address you, and yes, she was at the end of the hallway and pointed me in this direction," replied Hilliard. "My name is Francis. You may call me such, but enough about names. Hilliard, please sit." King Francis pointed to an armchair next to him, opposite the fireplace lighting the room. Hilliard looked at the guardsman behind him. "Don't worry, they only bite if you do," said King Francis. Sitting down, Hilliard watched King Francis sit down, and could see the strain of his age, despite his strong appearance. "Is it cancer?" Hilliard asked with a serious tone. "You can tell at a glance," replied Francis. "Your body language and movements suggest it's bowel cancer," Hilliard remarked with confidence, his eyes arrogant. "You would be correct." The king answered with a small but impressed smile. "How long?" asked Hilliard. "Your guess?" replied King Francis. 6 months at best," said Hilliard. "I was told 3 months with hopes of 6. You are quite the man, Hilliard," the king said, placing his hands crisscrossed under his chin with his elbows on his knees. "You have been chosen, as so have many others, to take part in a trial to take my place," said the king, after a small pause of silence. "Your place as king?" asked Hilliard, as if he didn't hear everything right. "Correct," replied King Francis. "Out of curiosity, how does one even get chosen?" asked Hilliard. "The moon. It can be a moment. It could be a small lifetime. When you are chosen, you are chosen," replied King Francis. The cracking of wood hit the silence in the room like a hammer hitting a nail. The crackling whispered between the books on the bookshelves, creating small chimed echoes. The pause between the two men was just a small conversation between their eyes, both conveying a want of one's true feelings or intentions. Hilliard broke the silence. "How do you know I am not a man with bad intentions?" "The trials sort out the truth from the lies," the king replied confidently. "Really?" Hilliard asked, with curious eyes. "Yes," the king replied with honest eyes. "I would like to take part in these trials at least," Hilliard said with an arrogant grin. "Very well. I wish you all the best, Hilliard. May we meet again," said the king, with an arm gesturing the door. Hilliard left the room and waited for his ears to confirm the shutting of the door. The idea that he could challenge these trials with the idea of what is truth and what is a lie crossed his eyes with a sinister glow. Everything here was proving to be an excitement he was lacking from his life. It could be that this strange moment in his life could explain to him who he was, what he was, and the why. The why being a defining moment of his life.